Hey you guys, welcome to my first tutorial. I'm just gonna kind of jump in, but before I start, I do want to give credit of my inspiration to this cup to Myra. She has a YouTube channel called Myra Makes It, and she has her own tutorial on this cup, and she's amazing and funny, and you guys should go check her out as well. But let's get right to it. So I basically just take my vinyl that I'm planning on using and make a little mark at the top, leaving in like about 1/2 inch at the top and bottom overlap, because you'll see why later, why we need that. But anyways, so I use this little cutty thing that I got at like Hobby Lobby or something, I don't know, but it's really useful to just slice off that little extra where I made that line to make the vinyl easier to work with, essentially. So once you have cut that off, you are ready to start, I guess. So I always cut off like about 1 inch or so at one end of my vinyl, because this is going to give us a little space to stick our vinyl to our cup. And you see here I had to rip it. I didn't want to push too hard with my X-Acto knife and like go straight through the vinyl, but anyway, it still worked. So I just lay the vinyl as straight as I can. I don't really measure anything. I don't have like any tool to measure straightness, so I just eyeball it, and it turned out just fine. So nothing against that. And then once I have it where I want it, I just push down that exposed piece that I just cut off, and I just basically make sure there's no air bubbles in it and slowly pull the backing off of the vinyl as I'm pushing the vinyl down around the cup. You don't want to pull the backing off at once, because it just makes it really complicated to work with, in my opinion. So you just do a little bit at a time and it should work just fine. So you can't really see the back, but I am just gradually pulling the backing off and turning the cup and pushing out all the air bubbles that I can. Don't really stress if there is air bubbles. There's two things you can do. You can either pull the vinyl back to where the bubble you see is, or if you kind of missed it and it's kind of far to pull the vinyl back, you can just wait till you're done and take an X-Acto knife and just poke a tiny pinhole in that bubble and then push around it, and all that air will be released, and you won't even be able to tell it was there. So that's always nice. I literally just use my fingers to rub all this vinyl down. I find it easier. I feel like I have more control when I do it this way. You guys can do whatever you want. You can use a squeegee. I don't know. There's probably a lot of different options, but I feel like I have the most control this way, using my fingers. So a little bit about me while I'm taking forever to put this vinyl around. My name's Abby. I'm 21. I live in North Carolina. I've been making cups for about a year, and yeah, I'm hoping to upload quite a few tutorials for you guys. So that being said, back to the tutorial. Once I got to the end, you guys can't see it on the video, but you basically push down where the vinyl overlaps the other vinyl. Once you get all the way around the cup, take your X-Acto knife and slice really carefully up that line. You will be able to see the line in person. It's still kind of hard with this pattern, but you'll be able to see it. I know it's hard to see in the video, but after you slice it, you just pull that excess vinyl off, and to make your life easier, you can trim the vinyl this way too, but I didn't in this video. I don't really know why. I kind of totally forgot about it, but it's fine. So I literally just had to work with what I had, and it worked anyway. I pulled my vinyl off, and with patterned vinyl like this, you're never going to have a perfect seamless look, but that's fine, because honestly, it's kind of a busy looking vinyl. It's going to be a V-split anyway. Nobody's going to notice that it doesn't meet up perfectly, and it's going to be gorgeous either way. So right here, you'll see I do have a bubble that I'm popping. I just make a little hole, and then it literally disappears. It's like the most satisfying thing ever. And I did have a few on there that I did, and I don't think it showed them all, but I do go around with a squeegee after to push out any extra vinyl and make sure it's all laid down nicely. So what I'm going to do next is take the excess vinyl we left at the bottom. This is why we leave a little bit at the bottom and the top, so that we can stretch that bottom vinyl as much as we can over the bottom corner of the cup. So I literally just go around and stretch, like pull the vinyl and stretch it as far as I can under the cup to give it that nice seal. And yeah, that's about it. It's pretty simple. Vinyl, I used to be terrified of full vinyl wraps, but after doing them, they're like one of my favorite things ever. So I literally just go around, push it all down, make sure it's sealed well so we don't get any epoxy caught under there to cause any problems for us. And then kind of the same thing with the top. I don't pull it as much. You can. I just basically push it all into the inside of the rim and go all the way around doing that as well. Then I will show you next how I'm going to get rid of all this, and it makes your life really easy, you guys. So just follow along. Take your X-Acto knife and just put it at a straight angle with your rim, and literally just, well, don't cut yourself. I sound like my mom, but please don't cut yourself. Just cut a thin strip off the whole entire rim of your vinyl. And sorry, my dog is chewing on something. Okay, anyway, so yeah, just cut a thin strip off of the entire rim, go all the way around. And I needed to change my X-Acto knife blade, so I'm sorry it is being so crappy. I think I changed it like midway through this video. But if your X-Acto knife is sharper than mine, this will be a lot easier. And you literally just go all the way around. And once you're done, you'll just be able to peel that vinyl out, easy as pie. Look at that. And the next step, I just literally will go around again. I push out all the bubbles that are left from doing that, and go at a little bit of an angle this time, just to expose a little piece of that, or like a little strip of that stainless steel. Because when you epoxy, you want the stainless steel to be exposed so that the epoxy will basically adhere to that instead of adhering just to that vinyl. Because once you go back to clean the rim of your cup and everything, if you cut that vinyl layer where it's sealed to the top of your rim instead of like right along the side a little bit, it's going to make that peel up, and you don't want that. So just expose a tiny little bit. It's not going to even be noticeable. I don't even think you can see mine, but it's going to make your cup last a lot longer. Do not skip this step. I used to think, oh, you don't need to do that. No, you definitely do. So don't skip this. This is really important for the longevity of your cup. I don't know, you guys. I don't use big words. This is optional. You don't need to cut the bottom of the cup. You don't need to cut the excess vinyl. I kind of wished I didn't in this case, just because it made it more complicated when it came to applying my epoxy, because it didn't lay the way I wanted it to. So I went around in this cup and did this. In my future vinyl wrap tutorials, you guys will see me do something different, but for now we're doing this. It doesn't matter, we're going to be painting the bottom anyway to make it look nice and clean and finished, so don't worry about that. I do go around though and push everything down, like just to be triple sure that I got everything sealed well, because I do not want this pulling up after I apply epoxy, because then you have a much bigger mess to fix. So now on to the fun part. Get yourself some painter's tape, masking tape, whatever you prefer to use, electrical tape, and you're basically just rip a piece off and go to town. I didn't measure anything. Like I said, I eyeballed all of this and it turned out great, but you can do whatever you feel will be best for you. Obviously, get creative with this. You can do one V, you can do a double V split like I did, or you could do even more. I don't know. You can really do a lot with this tutorial. But I just decided to do kind of a double V split on both sides. So I wanted to show more glitter, kind of equal glitter and vinyl, which I think turned out really well. But I'm basically going to essentially make a V with my tape, hence the name V-split, but it's super easy. I like using this blue tape. I find it not as like sticky as the white masking tape. White masking tape has been a pain for me to use, so I definitely like using this. And I'm going to be linking the vinyl I use and everything in my description below, you guys, so you guys can get it if you want to do this exact cup. If you do, I'd love for you to tag me so I can see your guys' creations. So basically for the second V, I just eyeballed and made sure that it looked even. And after that, I just went with, you can see me looking at it, like making sure it's even. Then I take my X-Acto knife, and after you push down the tape, you'll be able to see the line where you need to cut to make the V. And so this is really simple and satisfying. You just peel that off, and then you do the other side, and it's going to make a perfect V for you. This is why I love working with this kind of tape and everything, because it's so simple. But, oh, and another story, I didn't have a freaking X-Acto knife for like the longest. If you don't have one, just go save yourself some time and get one right now, because it's literally changed my life. That's all I have to say about that. So here's me doing the other side. I'm kind of have like deja vu because I thought this was the first side the first time I watched this video, and I was like, what was I doing? But yes, both sides have the same V. They're just kind of alternated. One side is one way and the other side is the other way, and I really like the way it looks. So once you're all masking taped up, you're just going to go around that masking, or not around it, but like right beside it, you're going to cut out every single piece, or every single V, I should say. This, you do have to kind of be steady and careful. I do not have steady hands whatsoever, and I was able to do it, so if I can do it, anybody can do it. You can literally see me like shaking in fast motion in this video. But yeah, you kind of have to apply enough pressure. Like, don't worry about it. You want to cut through that vinyl. You don't want to have to redo it once you pull the tape up. So make sure you're applying enough pressure to cut through it the first time, because it's not going to matter if you cut the cup. It's not, well, you're essentially not going to cut the cup, but if you scratch it or anything, it's not going to matter. If you have a prepped cup, it should be sanded, everything. So then I just peeled off as I went. I peeled off the tape and then would peel off the vinyl. I do recommend peeling off the vinyl right after you cut it, so you remember which ones you cut already, because I did not do this and I highly regretted it. So yeah, another thing while I'm cutting and peeling, this cup is blue underneath. Typically I spray paint my cups white or whatever color I'm going to be using, whatever glitter color, I can't speak, you guys, whatever glitter color I'm going to be using, so that I don't have to use like multiple layers of glitter and hope that the color beneath it doesn't show. This cup I did not, because what I'm going to be doing is using acrylic paint instead, and this cup was actually from a friend I met on Instagram. She makes tumblers as well, and she just sent me some of her sublimation cups. She didn't like the way they turned out, so what I did is I sanded them down, cleaned them, and just went for it. I'm like, these are going to be covered up anyway, might as well reuse them. I love it. I love the way they turned out. And yeah, this is my V-splits before I add glitter. And as you can see now, I have the light pink acrylic paint that I mixed, because I'm using like a rose gold glitter, so obviously I don't have rose gold paint, but I used this light pink paint and it worked fine. And you basically just have to, it's kind of tedious and takes a little while, but you have to basically just go in between each V. And I do recommend, once you've gotten like a little section done, to go ahead and glitter it, so that your glitter or your paint doesn't dry before you apply the glitter. You want that glitter to stick to that wet paint, because that paint is going to act as your like Mod Podge essentially. But I'm using the bronze rose gold from Sass & Crafts. I will have them linked down below as well. I'm going to have everything linked that I used. If you guys have questions, you can just comment, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Then I basically just keep trucking. I just go ahead and paint another section. I would basically do like each half V, I would add glitter, because I didn't want the paint to dry on me. So I did end up having, after this, I ended up having to go back with some Mod Podge, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. It did suck and it took forever, but I love the way the cup turned out, and I'm glad I did a second coat because I would not have loved it nearly as much as I do now. So back to the cup being blue and everything, since I didn't use Mod Podge because Mod Podge would just essentially dry clear, and you're not going to be able to cover up that blue with Mod Podge. So that is why I used acrylic paint, in case you were wondering. So that's a little hack for you guys if you're newbies and you don't know that, or if you're not a newbie and you just didn't know that. It's an awesome life hack for you. So I go ahead and tap off the excess glitter and try to get as much off as I can. Then I let it dry for 30 minutes and came back with my brush, and I just brushed off all that excess glitter, and you're going to be able to see the spots that did not get covered because the paint dried too fast, or whatever the reason was. So that is why I went back in with a coat of Mod Podge and a second coat of glitter, because this made my glitter look like a completely different color for some reason. I had to stop and make sure I was using the right glitter, but it made a huge difference. My glitter didn't look so pink like the paint underneath did, and I liked it a lot better. I think it looked a lot classier. You can see me pause here am I using the same glitter? So yeah, I was, but I love the way this glitter matched with my vinyl. The vinyl actually has a little tint of pink to it, and it's super cute. So yeah, basically exactly what you see is what I'm doing. You just have to add all that Mod Podge and let it dry I usually let it dry for close to an hour on the second coat, and then just brush off all the excess again. And then the second coat was all I needed. If you need more, go for it. You're gonna thank yourself later. So after that, I get a brush and my quick coat urethane sealer from CCDIY. Like I said, it'll be linked down below. This stuff is awesome. It was a great investment. I don't love spray sealing my cups. I mean, if I have to, I will, but I love using this stuff if possible. It is awesome for keeping glitter where it's supposed to be. So I obviously didn't want any glitter getting in my snakeskin vinyl, so I wanted to go ahead and seal it up really well, and it worked great. I may have had a speck or two, which is inevitable. It's gonna happen whether you want it to or not, but I, for the most part, had none in my end product. So I just go through like I did with the paint and the Mod Podge and paint right on that glitter until I go around and get all of it. And this stuff is also awesome for chunky glitters. Before you apply epoxy, you literally only need 2 coats of glitter, or not 2 coats, sorry you guys, 2 coats of epoxy, and then you're ready to sand and put vinyl on. Before I knew about this stuff, I would probably put 3 to 4 coats of epoxy on chunky glitter, which sounds insane, but you just had to, because it would not lay flat. This lays it flat so nicely, and it's good for keeping fine glitters in place. So obviously if you're doing a cup that's all one color, you really don't need to worry about this, but as for stuff like this that's more detailed and patterned, I do recommend using this just so your glitter doesn't mix. So I did apply a coat of epoxy after that, and I applied a really thick coat, so I only put 1 before I started adding these lines, but typically I would do 2 coats before I'd start adding decals, but it was super, super smooth, so I was really happy about that. I use CCDIY medium viscosity, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say it, artist resin, and I'll have that linked as well. But then I basically used my Cricut to cut these black vinyl strips, and yeah, I just went with the flow. What I found that worked the best for me is turning my cup as I was putting them on. That gave me the smoothest looking lines. They didn't look forced or anything, if that makes any sense. But I love the way this black vinyl gave it such a finished look. The cup honestly looks really cool without it, but I feel this just set it off right over the meter. It was so much better. And like I did before, I'm just cutting off those extra pieces that cross at the V to make the perfect V at the bottom and the top essentially on the other side. And I just went ahead and applied the rest of those strips. This is really like one of my favorite parts, is applying like decals and vinyl strips. I have used washi tape. Not my favorite. Some people might love it, but if you're a beginner, I would recommend just cutting out vinyl strips because they're much easier to work with. The washi tape I used, I think I stretched it out too far when I was pulling it tight on the cup, and it made like wrinkles and stuff. So I have to be careful when I use it to not like pull it tight. But with vinyl, it won't do that to me, so I don't have to worry about it. So that's just a little piece of advice from me. So I learned the hard way. But I do love, if you don't know how to use a Cricut, there's a lot of good YouTube videos about it. I would say that it's easier to learn than Silhouette. Personally, I have both, and I still have not learned to use my Silhouette, so it's sitting in its box as we speak. Okay, so here is after I put all the strips on, you guys. Oh my gosh, I love the way this cup turned out. Like, I'm so happy with it. But I basically went back and cut off all those strips that had migrated to the bottom of the cup, if you might put it that way. But I cut all those off and made sure it looked clean before I added paint to the bottom. Even though I could have painted over them, they would have bothered me. I didn't want them on there. And here's how I apply my epoxy. I had already mixed it and everything, obviously. Turn my turner on, and I just pour and use my hand to spread it out. You do have to use a gloved hand. This stuff is not good for your skin. So you don't want to get it on your hands, and I do wear a respirator when I pour or use resin. So make sure you're doing that. I used to use a silicone brush for the longest time, you guys, and I hated it. I did not know how people use their hands. Well, I started using my hands, and now it's the best thing I've ever done. So there's another thing. My cups have been so much smoother since I've done that. Then I went back and sanded the bottom to make sure I had a nice smooth bottom. Sorry, I'm immature. But yeah, I just went back and made sure it was really smooth so my cup would sit flat and everything. This is my alcohol. I'm just going in there to get some, and every time I sand my cups, I wipe them down with alcohol because it's what I find works the best to clean off. And if I've been working like putting vinyl strips and stuff on my cups, I will also clean them off with alcohol to get my greasy fingerprints off of them. So then I used acrylic paint to just basically paint the bottom black. I wanted it to blend better with the cup. I didn't want it to look unfinished on the bottom. To me, the white just looked unfinished with like the black and pink cup. So you could have gone with like a light pink or a black on this one. I chose black just because it looks cleaner to me, if that makes sense. I don't know. Light pink, you probably would have had to put a lot more layers to, and by this time, I was just ready for this cup to be done. So I just, basically, this is what I do. I go in a little circle thing and go all the way around. This is where I said I don't know why I cut off that excess vinyl, because I wouldn't have had to go so close to the edge with the paint. If the vinyl was covering a little more, I wouldn't have to go so close to the edge. So in the future, I'm not going to cut off that extra vinyl, and I'm hoping that will make it lay flatter and be easier to cover with epoxy as well. So I had already applied, after I put the paint on, I applied another coat of epoxy to seal that paint, and then I was getting ready to ship this cup off to its new home. So I went back and cleaned up the rim. You always need to do this because it never fails. Epoxy gets all over the top of the rim. So I literally just keep I've been talking too much. Oh my god, okay, I'm not even trying to say it. I just cut off all the extra epoxy and wipe it down with some alcohol to make sure I get all of that out. And then I obviously go back and clean it with like dish soap and everything before I send out my cups. I just want the person to have the best experience when they get it and not worry about cleaning it up. And look at her, she is beautiful. I know I said that like 6 times, but this is once I was finished and pictured it. And yeah, you guys go check out my Instagram for updates on new cups and tutorials. Thank you for watching.